I've hidden it. Somewhere you'll never find it.
It's in that pot, isn't it?
It's no secret that Tangled is one of my favorite Disney movies, and that's for many reasons, such as the character relationships, the beautiful animation, and the dynamic storytelling. However, one thing that is also incredibly important is Tangled's key role in the evolution of Disney. Let's get the obvious out of the way. Tangled is Disney's first 3D animated princess film. Although Disney's joint ventures with Pixar have been 3D since Toy Story, which came out in 1995, and technically Chicken Little was Disney's first solo 3D movie in 2005, it wasn't till 5 years later that this format of animation was used in the iconic Princess franchise. I know this video is supposed to be about Tangled, but I feel like I can't fully discuss it without bringing up The Princess and the Frog. I see Tangled and The Princess and the Frog as two pivotal films in the transitionary period of the Disney brand. They only came out 1 year apart, which hasn't happened since the release of Beauty and the Beast and Aladdin in 1991 and 92 respectively, but I think I have an explanation for this. The Princess and the Frog is a love letter to the old Disney. The beautiful, 2D, hand-drawn animation feels like it fits far more in the Disney Renaissance than the new era. And it's a solid goodbye to the old Disney, plus a sneak peek at what's next. The Princess and the Frog might not be considered technologically innovative, but it did start a new trend. Instead of staying relatively faithful to the original source material, like in Snow White or Cinderella for example, The Princess and the Frog differed greatly from the original fairy tale. In the original Frog Prince, the princess kisses the frog to break the curse. The Disney retelling turns that story on its head, acknowledging the existence of the fairy tale and using it as a launching pad to tell a far more complex story with plot twists and some interesting new characters.
Do not panic.
What did you do to me? I'm green and I'm slimy.
No. That is not slime.
What?
You are secreting mucus.
So, you might be wondering what any of this has to do with Tangled. Well, where The Princess and the Frog was a goodbye, Tangled was the beckoning of a new era. Not only was it 3D, but it also took several liberties from the original Grimm fairy tale. It differed so much that they didn't even bother calling it the same name. But this change brings upon a greater question. Why did Disney make Tangled? And why did they feel the need to change so much? The story of Tangled's development is a very long and complicated one. The initial idea to create a Disney princess inspired by Rapunzel actually began in 1996, 14 years before the film was released. The tone and idea for the film went through several changes as the studio experienced changes in leadership. In 2004, Disney announced a film called Rapunzel Unbraided that was supposed to be released in 2007, and they said it would be called a Shrek-like version of Rapunzel. And in all honesty, when I read that, I had no idea what that meant. But it did start to make sense the more I thought about it. I'd argue that Tangled is a pretty funny movie. It's not legendary or iconic like Shrek per se, but I can definitely see the influences.
I got a dream, I got some dreams. Oh, somebody get me a glass, because I just found me a tall drink of water.
Oh, stop it, you big lug. Where does that tunnel let out?
Knife.
An important thing to note was that this Rapunzel-inspired movie was always supposed to be computer animated. despite the fact that Glenn Keane, a Disney animator who originated the idea of the project, thought that computer animation wasn't smooth enough. Which makes sense because this is the early 2000s we're talking about. Eventually, the film kept on getting pushed back, most likely due to internal changes in the studio, but also to allow more time to work on developing the script. And unfortunately, Keane stepped down from the role of director due to several health issues, so the film was directed by Byron Howard and Nathan Reno. Rapunzel is obviously the main character, but she doesn't have a titular role like many princesses do. And this is the same with Tiana. My hypothesis is that this happened because although they are the main characters, they aren't the only characters. In recent years, I feel like Disney has focused more on developing side characters, which is something I talked about in length in my other Tangled video. But despite this fact, Rapunzel is still a really interesting character to talk about. In the original fairy tale, she's this miserable young girl who is separated from the outside world. In Tangled, Rapunzel still feels this need to escape, but there's a level of doubt and internal questioning. She's unaware that she's been kidnapped, and she's unaware of the true world outside. So she's curious, but she's also dealing with the guilt of betraying the woman who she thinks is her mother. All the while, she's being continuously gaslighted by Mother Gothel. I think that explains her constant positivity and energy. She uses it to fill a hole inside of her, but she doesn't even know why it exists. Tangled really stands out to me because although it is inspired by the original fairy tale, it doesn't feel like a direct retelling. Here are a few of the key distinctions between the two versions. The origin story is one obvious change. In the fairy tale, Rapunzel's father makes a deal with the witch. In exchange for allowing him to steal from her garden, she gets to have baby Rapunzel. In the film, Rapunzel is kidnapped. Another important change is the plant. In the film, the mother consumes a magical medicinal flower that came from a drop of sunlight, and the powers of the flower transfer into Rapunzel's hair, hence giving us an explanation as to why it's so long. In the 19th century fairy tale, Rapunzel is simply a garden vegetable that Rapunzel's mother craves. Although these changes to the backstory might be significant, I think the most substantial changes are to the characters and character relationships. Rapunzel's Prince Charming is swapped for a witty thief.
I know not who you are, nor how I came to find you, but may I just say, hi. How you doing? The name's Flynn Rider. How's your day going?
The evil witch is replaced by Mother Gothel, a vain and manipulative woman. And then there's the addition of fun side characters like Pascal and Maximus. I also feel like I have to mention the ending of the Grimm fairy tale. In it, the prince ends up blind, but eventually reunites with Rapunzel and their children. However, it isn't surprising that Disney changed this, because Disney often changes the infamous Grimm endings of the source material they're inspired by. Tangled and The Princess and the Frog are definitely not the first Disney movies to have significant plot twists or changes. But the differences are very clear, and there's a glaringly obvious reason for them. The problem with older Disney films is that many people think they're a little boring in terms of films today. Movies like Shrek and Toy Story have these interesting original storylines, but movies like Cinderella or The Sleeping Beauty are retellings of common bedtime stories, and they may not be the exact same as the original fairy tales, but they're still predictable. The plot twists that are incorporated into Tangled take away the predictability of the classic and give audiences an incentive to actually go watch the movie.
Please don't freak out.
I'm not freaking out. Are you freaking out? No, I'm just very interested in your hair and the magical qualities that it possesses. How long has it been doing that exactly?
Tangled is also a transition into the new era of films like Frozen and Moana that are completely original, because that's what people want: originality. They want a movie that can keep them on the edge of their seats. Additionally, Disney's change in methodology can be attributed to the changes in the entertainment and animation industry in the past 2 decades. People have access to a plethora of content on streaming services and free platforms like YouTube. Disney needed to evolve in order to keep up with the times and attract the new demographic of children that are growing up in the age of technology, thus leading to the creation of bright, funny, comedic films.
Snowman, infinite.
Oh, no, do I? Blast! Oh, Mama, Papa, help! Slam! Door shutting everywhere! Sisters torn apart!
Well, at least they have their parents. Their parents are dead.
Tangled is a great movie that signaled a shift in the animation industry. I'll always love and miss 2D hand-drawn classic Disney, but I recognize some of the great stories that computer-generated animation have brought to life. What are your thoughts on this topic?